Welcome back to our Meet the Chief series. I'm here today with Chief Master Sergeant Jeremy Remley up at the Heartland of America Band at Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska. So to get started, tell me a little bit about yourself. What did you do prior to the Air Force? Where did you grow up?
Well, hey, thanks. First of all, thanks a lot for this opportunity, Senior Airman Homes. This is an awesome product that you guys are putting together. I've been watching a couple of the other chiefs on here and pretty excited to get a chance to work together with you guys on this. So just a little bit of background about me. Before I came into the military, obviously went to school at Appalachian State University back in Boone, North Carolina. My first entry into the military was actually in the Marine Corps. I did 8 years in the Marines as a reservist, 4 years as a reservist, and then 4 years active duty down at Cherry Point in North Carolina. As much as I loved the Marine Corps, I loved what it turned me into and the training that it gave me. After about 8 years of that, it's a hard life. You know, they really do work their folks hard. They do great stuff, but it was an anomaly to be a Marine, an enlisted Marine with a degree. So I saw an opportunity in the Air Force and auditioned up at Langley and went up there and won the audition at Langley Air Force Base. And then since then, let's see, I was at Langley and then I went out to Germany after that, went down to Lackland and then up to Peterson, out to Yokota, and then out here to Offutt Air Force Base. So it's been a wonderful sequence of events so far.
Did you have a favorite assignment or any particular stories, happenings, pros and cons to different places that you went?
Absolutely, yeah. So probably I've got a few favorites. Probably my top favorite, just because of the experience for me and my family, was Germany. My station over there, my time over there with the Youth Safety Band. In addition to an amazing mission that the band has over there, my family and I had an opportunity to travel all throughout Europe. Meet a lot of great people while we were over there, see a lot of great sights. My daughter was age 3 to 6 while we were over there, so she still has fond memories of it. She's 17 now and just told me the other day that she says, "Dad, I think I want to go back over to Europe again now as a teenager. I think the experience will be quite different." But that was probably my number one favorite assignment. But just like the fun that we had with the family, I also had a ton of fun with the band. We did some amazing TDYs throughout the region. One of the things that's great about overseas bands, as well as deployed bands, you really get an idea of that connection that we make with our audiences and kind of softening the battle space, so to speak, when we go out and we do our concerts. There was one concert in particular that we did down in Italy. There's an Army base down there that was actually protesting some of the noise that was being brought about because of the Army base that was there. And the Army base was actually wanting to expand. So one of the ideas they had was to bring the band down there, kind of give a goodwill concert, bring leaders from both sides, the Italian leaders there and the leaders from the base, and sit them together. One thing I thought that was unique at that performance, at the beginning of the performance, we decided to open with a piece by Verdi, an Italian composer, right? So we're like, yeah, we're going to relate to them on this. No, we did not. We really didn't connect with them right from the beginning. Maybe they saw through it. Maybe they didn't recognize the selection that we played for them. But they were picketers at the back of the audience. They were kind of restricted. They weren't allowed to come up into the immediate audience there, but there was picketers back there at the back. So we're all looking out there like, okay, are we really going to be effective? Are we going to be able to help out this Army base and kind of make this connection between the two organizations? But as we went on through the concert, it was amazing. You actually saw some of the picketers setting down their signs. Maybe they were just getting tired. I don't know. But they did drop their signs. But I'm not joking when I say by the end of the concert, they were back there singing along to "God Bless the USA." No joke. That was probably one of the most remarkable experiences that I've seen on a TDY. So that's part of what, in addition to the amazing time that I had down there with my family, that connection that we were able to make with our audiences over there. I guess my second favorite is a completely different assignment than what I had in Germany. It did immediately follow my time in Germany, but I took an opportunity to be an MTI with the Drum and Bugle Corps down at Lackland Air Force Base. And while I was down there, I got to see all of our guaranteed bandsmen go through the drum and bugle flights, as well as countless other trainees get a chance to come through there. I met some amazing airmen, worked with now Chief Master Sergeant Stephen Larson, Master Sergeant retired Sam Johnson. Those were my two cohorts for the most of the time there. Worked with now Master Sergeant Dave Evans. He's a first sergeant. Some amazing people that I got a chance to work with down there. That coupled with the interaction with trainees. I know everybody jokes about, you know, being TIs and getting all up in their face and yelling at them. And I could do that with the best of them. But really, honestly, connecting with those trainees and seeing them turn from civilians, transitioning through basic trainees and graduating as an airman. And for some of them that really didn't want to be there at the beginning and that light turning on, that was a remarkable experience while I was down there.
As I recall, Mr. Johnson, he's now known as Mr. Johnson, Master Sergeant retired, was still there, former saxophonist, and he was one of my drum and bugle instructors there, and we did the parade, and blazing hot. I graduated late May, but it was already in the 90s and 100s. But
oh yeah,
you know, still doing it. I've got a great deal of respect for people who deal with that job, but that's really cool because you do get to see that first line, you know, that transition, as you said. And then the other thing is back to the Italy story. I believe we released Master Sergeant or Chief Master Sergeant Martha Garcia, who is the new career field manager, and she told that same story, but from her perspective. So that's cool that you got to be there for that one.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of her interview, and I did remember her. I saw the bit about her, and she was talking about it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is the same story, but I thought whether or not I should tell it, but it was that remarkable that I think it's worth sharing on more than one occasion. I've seen a few things like that throughout my career in the Air Force, but that's one that definitely sticks.
And you play, just for clarity, what instrument do you play?
I'm a tuba player.
Tuba player. Okay, she was on clarinet, so a little different section, a little different perspective.
She was way closer to the crowd.
That makes sense. So throughout your career, you know, they say the chief is really kind of the pinnacle of the enlisted force structure. It's the 1%, if you will. Did you always kind of know you wanted to shoot for chief, or was that something that dawned on you gradually, or was that something that there was a moment where you said, oh, you know, this is what I want to do, what I want to become?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd love to say that from day one, I knew that I was going to be a chief, that was what I was always aspiring to, but that actually wasn't the case. As I told you earlier on, I was a Marine for 8 years before I joined the Air Force. And when I first came into the Marine Corps, I went to boot camp, 3 months of boot camp. They have this thing called the 92-day reserve program in the Marine Corps, where you can go to boot camp and you go be a reservist. Then the following summer, you go to your MOS school where you learn how to do your trade. When I first came in, I wasn't a bandsman. I was going to school for music, but they don't have reserve bands in the Marine Corps. So I went to boot camp in between my freshman and sophomore year of college. Let's just say I don't know if I was quite ready for the military at that point, as much as I knew that I wanted to join the Marine Corps. When Desert Storm and Desert Shield happened, I was in high school, and I really wanted to join then. I felt like, you know, I felt compelled to serve and kind of get out there and, you know, help, you know, serve my country. But I didn't have an opportunity. I was too young at that time. So when I enlisted in between my freshman and sophomore years of college, even though I wanted to go, I didn't really know what was in store for me. So about 3 days after showing up to Marine Corps boot camp, I just marched downstairs to the drill instructor's table, and I told them I wanted to quit. I said, hey, I want to go home. Oh boy, they lost their minds. They chewed me out, yelled at me, screamed at me. A week later, they dropped me into my actual platoon that I was going to be working with for the entire time, told all of my new drill instructors what my plans were to quit. So for the next 2 weeks, I think they just destroyed me. Every time I would go to a meal, they'd make fun of me. They'd ask me if I was going to quit, and, you know, I'd say yes, and they'd make me do push-ups and all this fun stuff. And it was my senior drill instructor at about week 4 that pulled me aside and said, hey, Remley. I said, yes, sir. And he says, you need the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps needs you. And I was like, interesting. So I thought about that for a little bit, and then I realized there was some truth to that. But more importantly, I was just going to keep getting belittled and destroyed every day of my time at boot camp unless I decided to go ahead and commit to it. So at that point, I committed to at least that first tour in the military. I enjoyed those first 4 years as a reservist, enough to augment to active duty, and did 4 years active duty down at Cherry Point. And even then, it wasn't like I was sitting there looking at the end saying, hey, I'm going to be a sergeant major in the Marine Corps. I wanted to play my instrument. I wanted to make music. I mean, there was a lot of great stuff that you could do through that music. But I tell you, I just wanted to play. And so then I switched over to the Air Force and got into it. I was at Langley, got to play next to some amazing musicians. And even there, I had not really decided that I wanted to be a chief. Although looking back, I did have some friends tell me then, you know, they kind of saw that in me, saw that potential. So that made me feel pretty good. It probably wasn't until maybe towards the end of Germany, the beginning of my time at Lackland Air Force Base as a TI, when I finally decided, you know what, because I am a competitive person, and I started to say, well, okay, I don't want to just stop at Master Sergeant. I want to keep going. I want to keep, you know, getting better. I think it was at that point that I finally decided, yeah, I think I do want to be a chief. And really started, and again, I was surrounded by some really amazing individuals, Chief Larson and Mr. Johnson, who challenged me daily and helped kind of build me into who I am today. So, yeah, wasn't obvious at the beginning, but throughout the career, it definitely became something that I really, really wanted, and I do cherish.
So how would you say that either the Air Force or the Marines, either one, how has the military shaped you as a person, and what are kind of your biggest life lesson takeaways from that process?
Yeah, so one thing I could say about the Marine Corps is it taught me that nothing can really suck too bad. So it gave me a good perspective that there's a lot of difficult challenges out there, and it prepared me to kind of look those challenges in the eye and say, nope, you're not going to take me down. So that part about the Marine Corps I absolutely loved, and there are a lot of things about the Marine Corps that I do still love to this day. I actually had an opportunity when I was a Master Sergeant to go back to the Senior NCO Academy with the Marines. Had an absolute blast there with them. So a great group of individuals, and the bands as well. What they do for our military is amazing. You know, what they when it comes to marching a parade and playing a parade and sounding amazing and representing the United States extremely well, I don't think there's any better. I will give it to them. They do that better than us, 100%. But there's definitely, you know, each service has their strengths. So coming over to the Air Force, some of the what I learned about the Air Force and what I learned about life here is just a respect for the quality of people that we hire. I learned that pretty quickly down at Lackland, just seeing the talent pool that we were bringing in, whether it be into the band or into any job in the Air Force. The Air Force does not accept mediocrity right from the get-go. It's challenging just to get accepted. And I saw in a brief 8-week period, like I said earlier, you see that transition from civilian to airman. Usually by about week 3 or 4, we're putting the trainees on schedule. Usually it's for our own sanity to get some time to go home and maybe spend a little bit of time with your family. But getting them on schedule and seeing that they're fully capable and they run that flight by themselves in the evening, it's tremendous to watch.
So from a bandsman perspective, and kind of from your eye in the sky view, what do you find as some of the greatest challenges for the military bands, regardless of branch, and what are the biggest rewards? What do the bands bring to the table for the military? I mean, you've talked about on the parade field, but what do you see as our why?
Oh, good. That's a very good question. So the why about bands, what's our purpose? What's our general purpose? Of course, I could spout off, you know, our priorities: honor, inspire, connect, recruit, all very important things, and also all things that we should know about and we should be working towards while we're out doing TDYs, while we're doing ComRel events, while we're doing support on base. But honestly, for me, a big reason, you know, this is me personally, this is just Jeremy Remley, a big reason that the bands exist, in my opinion, is to soften the battle space. As a Marine, I've got no problems with going and fighting if we have to. I will fight for what, I stand for. And sometimes it comes to that. Sometimes we have to take down the bad guys, and we got to do it. And, in the Air Force, we always talk about bombs on target, getting them there, making it happen. That's extremely important. We got to do that sometimes. But on that note, a lot of times people will talk about being at the tip of the spear, right? When you talk about going out to that fight, bringing the fight to the enemy, the strongest and the best, they're out there at the tip of the spear. One of the things I always talk about the band is we are ahead of the tip of the spear, right? I think it's important when we can get out and de-escalate situations like we did in Italy with our concert out there and the protesters. And if we can de-escalate and bring it down and prevent us from having to get to those hostilities, that's a wonderful impact of the bands, and that's a huge reason why we exist. Additionally, there was another experience that I had when I was out at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. The 58th Special Operations Wing needed to do training missions around their base down in New Mexico. They were similarly to Italy. There was noise complaints with the local community, with the residents, and these are American citizens, but they've got their houses, they've got that maybe near the flight path, near where they need to do training. And there was complaints, but the base leadership and the civilian leadership just couldn't come to the table to talk about it. So one of the things we did was we brought the band. We just happened to be going on a TDY down to that area, and we caught wind that some of these issues were going on and said, hey, we got an idea. How about we send our rock band down there to do a concert? So we get the rock band down there. They did a concert. We followed that up a few months later with the concert band, did a concert down there. On both occasions, we just happened to seat the military leaders right next to the civilian leaders. They couldn't help but talk to one another during that concert. So after that was over, they actually ended up coming to an agreement, coming to terms, because they were able to get to the table, right? We were able to prevent it from, and we're talking about hostilities. I don't think that we were going to have an all-out riot down there, but I do think that we kept it from escalating beyond where it needed to be. We kept it at that diplomatic point. We got there ahead of the tip of the spear and kind of headed off any potential conflict.
I guess it's a different kind of Air Force noise than jet noise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and on those amazing airmen out there with the Spec Ops wing, I mean, they were preparing to do their mission, that tip of the spear mission, getting out there, fighting the fight if they needed to. And if they weren't able to do the training necessary to be effective in their role, they just wouldn't be of use to the Air Force. So I really feel blessed that we were able to go down there and help them out and help them get the necessary training to do what they need to do.
Let's see, with your background at Lackland, you're probably in a uniquely good position to answer this next question. What would be your top tips for airmen, bandsmen, or whatever career field they may be going? What are your top tips for incoming airmen or people who are considering joining the Air Force?
Right, yeah, so probably my number one tip to any airman, whether they're a brand new airman or whether they've been serving 8, 10, 12, 15 years, be open to what the Air Force has to offer you. Sometimes we all like to get what we want, right? That's pretty normal for our society. We work hard, we play hard. The harder you work, the better your pay. The more money you have, the more fun activities you can go do. And that's great. I love that about our society. But sometimes, whether you know it or not, the Air Force or some higher power might be the one that makes the decision for you that ends up being the best decision you could possibly have made for you. So like I said at the beginning, be open to what the Air Force has to offer you. Every PCS that I've done through my entire career has been my choice, with one exception. So I wanted to come to the Air Force. I got here. I wanted to go to Germany. I wanted to go to Lackland. I wanted to go to Japan. I wanted to come to Offutt Air Force Base. I got every one of those. That was amazing. The only one that I didn't choose to do was a PCS to the Academy Band at Peterson Air Force Base. I had wanted to go there earlier in my career, but by the time we were finishing up at Lackland as a TI, I honestly just wanted to hang out down there and go to the Band of the West. We had a great house, great neighborhood, great schools for my daughter. I enjoyed the the community. But the Air Force was like, nope, we need you up here. So I was like, okay, let's go, all right, salute smartly, go on, I'm not going to complain about it. But the funny thing about that, after 4 years there, that is my absolute favorite place of all of my assignments. We're going to go retire there without a doubt. So that to me is just a good life lesson, that tells me personally, and I hope to pass it on and encourage other folks, be open to what the Air Force has to offer. As you know, in the bands, it's difficult for us to PCS CONUS. So a lot of times the only way that you can get, if you're at one duty station, the best way for you to get to move on and maybe expand your horizons is to go overseas and then come back. I know from previous conversation that I had with you that you're very interested in heading overseas for an assignment. Some airmen out there aren't as excited or aren't as willing to do that. Maybe it takes them far away from home. Maybe they're afraid of the challenges they might face. But having been stationed in both of our overseas bands at USAFE and at PACF, as well as having deployed with the band with AFCENT, I can tell you those experiences are invaluable. And sometimes, if you're a little hesitant about it, that's okay. It's okay to be curious and maybe anxious about things. But if that assignment comes your way, accept it with open arms. And because if you go over there not wanting it and fighting it every step of the way, it's probably going to be miserable, right? So even if it wasn't your first choice, if you go ahead and accept it, what the Air Force has to offer, I think in the long run, you'll end up being very happy and maybe end up wanting to retire there like I did. So.
That's awesome. Well, as we wrap up, you have any final words of advice, any final funny stories? Just sum us all up.
Well, no, not. I was trying to think of some funny stories. I mean, there are so many. Some of them involve people that I don't know if they'd appreciate me telling some of those stories. Not that they're embarrassing or anything like that, but I'm going to go ahead and share this one. The individual might know who they are. I'm not going to share a name or anything, but it was a bandsman. And again, so many of my funny stories go back to my time at Lackland Air Force Base. So I was down there, and one of the trainees that came through while I was there was not a brass player, but was playing the soprano. Because as bandsmen, I don't know if you had any woodwind players that were bandsmen there with you. We usually throw them on brass instruments as well, just because they have a leg up even on somebody that's only played trumpet for 2 years. So this individual was a guaranteed bandsman playing soprano, came up to me in the hallway and gave their reporting statement, and their head was kind of sideways like this. And I just went, stop! And I mean, I didn't touch them or anything, but I took my hand like this, and I kind of brought my hand up, and their head kind of went zip, up like that. And I proceeded to just kind of chew them out for a bit. And then they walked away. And then I realized, holy cow, that was a guaranteed bandsman. I'm sure that I'm going to serve with that individual at some point in my career. Sure enough, my next duty station, Peterson Air Force Base, I served alongside that individual. We both had a good laugh about it. And kind of reminisced about that story and the different perspectives we each had on that story. But that was definitely one that goes down in the memory banks as something kind of comical and funny that I'll take with me. But just to kind of sum things up, it's been an amazing ride. I've been doing this for, well, if you count the reserve time, 25 years now. I've loved every minute of it. I've loved every opportunity that the Marine Corps and the Air Force has given me. I've loved every individual that I've had the opportunity, whether they're airmen, whether they're U.S. citizens, whether they're some of our foreign partners out there that I've had an opportunity to work alongside and learn from. That's the big thing. I feel like going back to Lackland, just from trainees coming through, there's nobody that you can't learn something from. There were trainees there that I would just watch and I'm like, yeah, that's a much better way to do things than I'm doing it right now. And then I would adopt it. Going to the overseas locations, to Germany, to Japan, to the Middle East, watching their culture, watching their society. They each have something to offer us that, they probably do a little bit better than we do as Americans. So bring that home and adopt that. So just learning through all those opportunities that the Air Force has given me, it's just been irreplaceable. Not looking forward to the time when I move on. It'll happen eventually. I've still got a few more years in me. But yeah, it's been a great ride. Thanks again for the time to do this. This has been a really awesome opportunity, and I'm thrilled that y'all are doing it.
Well, thank you so much. This has been really enriching for us as a production team. You know, we kind of take turns with the interviews, and it's always fun to me to sit down and meet somebody new and get that perspective and learn. So I want to thank you so much. It's been an honor, and I hope to see you in some other duty station in some other time, or a manning assist, and we'll work together then.
Awesome. Same to you. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you very much, sir.